Hello, and welcome to Pathways to Healing, the Perfect Step podcast. We're your hosts, Cody Norman
and Logan Fry, paralysis recovery specialist at the Perfect Step, also known as TPS.
We are not doctors and are not prescribing anything during this podcast, as this podcast is for informational purposes only.
However, we are providing knowledge and experience that we have gained from working for years with clients in the paralysis community.
The guests on this podcast include experts in their respective fields or members of the paralysis community in their own right.
Suggestions and advice that we share may affect each person differently, as not one injury or diagnosis is the exact same.
All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to Pathways to Healing. Today we have special guest Lorie Hargrave. Welcome, Lorie.
Well, hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for taking your time and coming on.
Yes, excited.
I'm sure most of the guests are going to know who you are, but for those who don't, you want to give us a little bit of a background on why you're here?
Yes, I am Lorie Hargrave. I'm the mother of Hal Hargrave Jr., who is one of the founders of the Be Perfect Foundation and also of the Perfect Step.
That's right. Awesome. And Lorie, maybe you can dive in a little bit about like the Perfect Step, how it got started, and how Be Perfect got started too. So we know that was, back a few years ago when Hal got injured, and he had a vision maybe of starting a nonprofit organization to help give scholarships and foundations to people that were in similar situations that he was in. Right. So what was like the mission behind Be Perfect, and when you guys got started, who were you helping at first?
Well, as I've told many people, Be Perfect came before the Perfect Step, as many people know. Okay. The Perfect Step wasn't even something that we had thought about initially, in the first year or so, because we were still trying to figure out Hal's life. But the Be Perfect Foundation came pretty quickly after Hal's injury. He was going to Project Walk in Carlsbad. We were going 5 days a week. I was one of his drivers. We did it for 7 years, back and forth to Carlsbad from Claremont. Over there, it was 5 days a week for several weeks, actually, or maybe even months. And then we did the commute 3 days a week. Hal had a caregiver in the beginning. Her name was Cherie, and her and I used to share caregiving days together because it took both of us. So we would just drive Hal over there. So it's really actually, I'm going to fast forward it because we were there several months, starting maybe pretty right away after he got out of the hospital in August is when he got injured. And then I want to say that it was early November, maybe. Right when he got out of the hospital, we went right away over to Carlsbad.
Did you guys already know about Project Walk, or how'd you hear about it?
We did. It was kind of before the computers were, on your phone. I'd go home at night and I'd spend hours on the computer researching. Really all I knew of was the Christopher Reeve Foundation. That was the only thing. I didn't even know anybody with a spinal cord injury. So it was sort of new to us, and I would remember just kind of Googling. I don't even know if it was Google at the time, but just researching spinal cord injury, recovery. And then I stumbled across Project Walk in Carlsbad. So we did a lot of traveling out there, and every day. So we had long conversations of Hal's injury, and then getting him there. We would spend 2 hours driving there and 2 hours driving back every single day. We'd have to leave by 8:30 in the morning because he would have a 2-hour workout. So we were on, the road most of the day. So it wasn't until, I believe it was December, and I think Big Hal might have shared the story about a guy named Brian O'Neill, who was a motocross rider, and he actually was one of the guys that we inspired us to start the Be Perfect Foundation. And so that was really, by getting to know Brian, is the reason why we started our nonprofit. So right after the holidays, Brian said he wasn't going to be coming back anymore. He told us, and we got to know his family, his wife and his child. He had a little toddler at the time. And we thought, what do you mean you're not coming back? And he just said, well, I can't afford it. I got to feed my kids. And, I have a family to take care of. So he had a company electrician, and He was an electrician by trade, and then he started this company, which happened to be in San Dimas, actually. And so Brian told Hal that he wouldn't be seeing him. And so on the way home, it happened to be a day that I believe his dad was in the car with us, and we were on the way back. And every time Hal would go to Project Walk, he'd have like 3 or 4 people come with us. I mean, he had an entourage of people that would just follow him, do all his therapies. And we had a talk on the way home, and he just said, I think I've been thinking about this. This just isn't fair. I get to continue to come while Brian can't. And, I'm lucky because I'm, a child and not the father of children. And he has no other choice. And so his fundraising probably ran out. I don't remember how he was getting funded at the time. So from that, we decided, okay, Hal had this idea. Let's start a nonprofit. So I believe it was, Hal got injured in August of 2007. And then in like January, February, we had our nonprofit license. And we kind of got on that right away. And then we had our first Be Perfect event. That was going to be at the Claremont Club. They offered up their tennis court. And we thought, okay, we'll get 200, 300 people, maybe come to our first nonprofit organization. Fundraiser, if we could raise some money, maybe we could help a couple people. And then the number grew to like 400, 500, and we're like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? So we told the Claremont Club, probably not going to work here. We need to reach out to a couple other places and see if we can do it there. So it worked out great. We ended up asking the Half family, which are located in Laverne, in the hills of Laverne. And they offered up their property. They have an amphitheater, and we had our first annual event there. And that's kind of when it all started. And that was like April, I believe.
Of 08?
Wow, so,
Yeah, of 08.
So like 6 months after, basically.
And then we had like 700-800 people show up to that. And we hired volunteers, like, from the colleges. Some of the athletes came and helped, and we just had parking people. I mean, the people just came out by numbers.
So that's been a thing for a long time, because this last event, there was a lot of volunteers that were athletes from Laverne and other colleges.
Right. So we'll have our 11th annual in 2026.
Yes.
Right.
Wow. That's like a fast turnaround for something of that caliber to be done.
Right.
I'm sure it took a lot of effort from all of you guys. I do want to back up a little bit and get a little bit more into your history.
Okay.
Working in the hospital setting.
Right.
Can you touch a little bit on that and how that may have swayed you one way or another to the type of therapy or the type of recovery that your son was going to be getting?
Right.
Because I remember Hal telling the story about your interactions with some of the doctors.
Yeah.
Well, some of the doctors when Hal was first in the hospital.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I remember him talking about that a little bit. Can you talk a little bit about your history?
Yeah. I became an advocate pretty quickly. So my background is I have a radiology background. I was an x-ray tech for a while. Went to Mount Sac and Orange Coast College to get my ultrasonography degree. Became an ultrasonographer. Used to scan babies and everything, actually. So that was my beginning of. I had a brother that was a radiologist who kind of got me into radiology. So I worked at a hospital. By the time I was 16, I had my first job as an orderly working in radiology. And then during college, I had worked at urgent care centers, Whittier and one at John Wayne Medical Clinic. Worked at the medical center at my college that I was at. So I kind of just knew that I wanted to be in the medical field of some sort, but I knew for sure that it was going to be in radiology. I just didn't know which department I wanted to go. So I started out as an ultrasound tech and went to Orange Coast College, where I got my amazing degree. 3 intense years of, prerequisites, and then your program, and, did all my training over at Western Medical which is in Santa Ana area. So that was kind of, I think, what got me into the whole medical field and knowledge of what my future was going to bring. I never knew that was going to be my future, right?
So going to the conversation that you had with Hal's doctors of...
I came in with a lot of knowledge, let's
Yeah.
just say. And so when Hal had his accident, and we were on the phone with CHP, they told us that they were airlifting him, and we were like, oh my God, we knew it was a bad accident. I hope they take him to a level 1 hospital. And they did. They took him to Arrowhead Regional Hospital. And so there, when we got there, he was just getting wheeled out of MRI or CT. I can't even remember at the time what it was, but I just knew that we were going to have some answers the minute we got there. My brother, who lives in Flagstaff, just happened to be visiting that weekend. And so on the way back we drove up, to Barstow where Hal's accident happened. And then we were on our way back, and I remember calling my brother and telling him, hey, Hal got in a really bad accident. Can you meet us at the hospital? I might need your expertise. I think it's pretty bad. But I'd like for you to be there. So he showed up. We showed up pretty much at the same time. And I just remember going into the ER and seeing him wheel out. And the only thing I was concerned about at the time, believe it or not, he was a baseball player. So he had these funky sunglasses on that had like music in them, earphones. And the first thing that came out of his mouth was, Mom, can you get my glasses? And I said, Hal, I'm not really concerned about your glasses. I'll get you a pair. If we can't, we don't have them, we don't have them. Don't worry about it. We'll make sure you get them. And I went, oh my God, I can't believe he's asking this. And, at the time I get there, I have no clue. I just knew he was alive.
Right.
And so it didn't even occur to me that he had a spinal cord injury at that moment, because he was talking and I just, was kind of numb to it, I guess. And then the nurse came out and said, I think you need to go into this room over here. And I looked at Hal and went, are you kidding me? This isn't good. And he goes, what do you mean? And I go, you don't put people in a private room unless something's bad. It's about to happen. And he's like, but Lorie, he's fine. He's alive. And I said, I know, but something's not right. So we go into the room, and at this time my brother walks in, and I see him staring at the screen, looking at his x-ray. Actually, it was his x-ray at the time. And then he looked over at me, and he looked like he was ready to cry. And I was like, what is going on? And he goes, I'm sorry. And he goes, I didn't think I was going to come and see this. And I said, would somebody please tell me what's happening? And then right then and there, the ER doctor said, well, your son broke his neck, dislocated it. Actually, it was a C5-6 dislocation. It was a subluxation. So when you get in a whiplash, your spine separate, shifts. And you could clearly see it on the x-ray, because usually you would see this vertebrae and all your vertebrae would be lined up, right? And I just knew when I saw it, I went, this just isn't right, because I had experience in radiology. And I also did MRIs as well as ultrasounds. So I knew the minute I saw that MRI, I went, oh my God, he dislocated his neck. But still at that very moment, I really wasn't processing, okay, because literally Hal was at an Angel game a couple days before that. And we were going to the lake. And I went, okay, Hal, we'll be fine. We're going to get you fixed, and we're going to go to the lake this weekend. And then the doctor looked at me and said, I don't think Hal will be going to the lake this weekend. And I went, well, what's the matter? And he says, there's about a 3% chance your son will never walk again. And so in that moment, I was like, are you kidding me? So honestly, he was there maybe 10 days at Arrowhead. I don't think I slept for 10 days. And me being the faith-based person that I am, I think I prayed for 10 days straight, wouldn't go to sleep. And I had a couple friends that would come and relieve me. You should go home and take a shower. And I think I might have left maybe twice to go home. And I had a 2-year-old at the time, Bella, my youngest. And then Haley was 9. And Corey was 16 in high school, starting football season. And so a lot of things were going through my head at the time going, oh no, I'm not going to have a kid playing football, and I just remember calling the coach saying, you're going to put a neck roll on that kid, After I came to my senses, I realized how dangerous it was to play football, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the coaches at the high school were great. They said, we'll get your son a neck roll. We'll make sure he's safe, And I went, I'm not kidding. I can't have. But the ironic thing is, a week before Hal's accident, I don't know if I've shared this story to too many people, but we were at Lake Havasu, and Hal was a avid wakeboarder,
Yeah.
And we were at Lake Powell years before, and he was trying to land his backflip, jump the wake, and he had a couple terrible falls, and we had to run into town and get him a helmet and said, you're going to get a helmet. So when we were out at Lake Havasu the week before his accident, I literally said this to Hal. I was in the boat observing. His dad was driving, and he had a horrible fall. He kind of got the wind knocked out of him, and he's like, yeah, I'm kind of done. And I said, I said something pretty mean to him. I said, gosh darn it, Hal, if you break your neck, I swear I'll never take care of you. I literally said that. I said, if you become a quadriplegic, I'll never forgive you. Remember vividly saying that to him. And here we are a week later, breaks his neck. And I remember telling him I didn't mean what I said, but in that moment, that was the first thing I was thinking of him, because he was trying, when he snowboarded, he'd do the same thing and break his arm once. And I just didn't think he was going to get injured driving.
Right.
Right. So that's kind of how that all started. And then, then from there he got transferred over to Casa Colina, where he spent 3 months. So.
How,
sorry, that was a little long.
No. I mean,
Thank you for expanding.
I
and
didn't
sharing
know
that story.
that backstory. I mean, and it's great to hear your perspective when sharing it, because even Big Hal's perspective when sharing it's so much different, right? So it's good to hear both your perspectives,
right,
and see how that looked through your lens when that all happened.
Welcome to the Be Perfect Foundation, a beacon of hope for those living with paralysis. We're a nonprofit organization on a mission to make a difference in the lives of hundreds of fathers, mothers, siblings, and friends. We provide direct financial and emotional aid. From medical necessities to guidance and support, we're here to help individuals on their road to recovery. With nearly $10 million raised and a 100% volunteer staff, your support goes a long way. Visit BePerfectFoundation.org to donate or find out how you can get involved. The Be Perfect Foundation, changing perceptions daily.
I think when I realized that I wasn't going to give up was when the doctor came. Well, okay, Hal had a halo on.
Yeah.
And they had to put screws in his forehead to realign his spine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to be in the room. So my brother went in there and observed that, and they dropped sandbags. So on the back of a halo, they have these little hooks. And what they do is they drop sandbags, and they'll put a pound and pound until they see the neck, the spine go into place.
Wow.
So imagine you're laying on your back and you're on the edge of the bed and they're dropping sandbags, not drop, like literally adding weight to this halo, so that you reduce your neck to a normal state, right?
Wow.
Because you have this natural curve, and he was like this. So at that point, I just thought, oh wow, this is really going to be a long road. And I carried a baseball the entire time in my pocket, and a cross that one of Hal's friend gave him. And I remember sitting by his bedside, and I would put that baseball in his hand, and I would tell Hal to throw it, like squeeze it, squeeze it, squeeze it. So that was kind of his, and I go, we're going to get you playing baseball again. And so in my mind, I kept thinking he's going to recover. He's going to have this, full recovery. I just know it. And when the doctor told me that, hey, we're going to have to transfer him out of here, we're going to look at a nursing home. And I said, absolutely not. And he said, well, why not? And I said, I'm not taking my 17-year-old into a nursing home. And I go, would you do it with your child? And he kind of looked at me and he goes, well, you're not going to be able to take care of him. He's going to be vented, and I don't think you're going to be able to take care of him. And I said, well, I'm certainly not going to. I go, you know what? I'll just take him out of here right now. I'll go in there right now, pull his IV out, and we'll leave. And
That was the story I was referring to.
I remember that. Yeah, you told me that story.
And and he just said, you're going to what? And I said, you heard me. I said, get his discharge papers, get a gurney up here. I'm taking him out of here. So I called a friend, and he had some connections at CASA. And at the time, I just kind of knew a little bit about CASA because ironically, our company Apex had done some of the remodels over there. We did some of the wall covering and painting, and I remember walking the hallways and knew that it was a rehabilitation center for people with injuries and catastrophic injuries. So that was the first place that came to my mind. So we got an eval. They brought Hal over, and they, at the time, I hope I can say this now, they weren't taking minors over at Casa Colina, and Hal was 17.
Oh.
And so we had to stay the night. So they wouldn't let us go home. Someone always had to be there 24/7. It was like leaving your child, your minor. So we had to stay the night. So Big Hal would stay the night, and then he would get up in the morning, and his mom would come for about 2 hours, and I would get the kids off to school, and then come there in the morning and then spend all day, be with him during his rehab for 3 months. But yeah, I wasn't gonna leave. I mean, after leaving the hospital over at Arrowhead, I really didn't know what I was in for. I just knew that I was going to have to continue to advocate for him and put him in the best possible position. And so, I was researching. I mean, I took a crash course in spinal cord.
So backtrack a little bit to when you guys had found out that he had a spinal cord injury.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you were in the room when Hal received the news that he had a spinal cord injury.
Yeah.
Do you remember his reaction? Do you remember what they told him exactly and how they educated him on what that was?
I think Hal did not dwell too much on the, 97% that they gave him.
Right.
He just said, all I need is a percent. That's all I need. Right. Give me a couple percentages and I'll just work with that. So, I just told Hal, I said, we're going to prove him wrong. I mean, that was my attitude from the day we left that, hospital.
Right.
And, I just remember asking, watching some doctors coming in. They were great. Arrowhead was amazing. I mean, I have nothing. I always tell people I think the stars were aligned for Hal. I mean, if it couldn't have been more aligned, everything was aligned perfectly, because I had heard other people's stories about, the lack of care, or, them sitting around waiting for a doctor or waiting days for surgery to happen. Hal went into surgery within 24 hours. He was in an 8-hour surgery.
Wow.
And I remember the doctors coming into the waiting room, and we had, a room full of people. And then one point, they made everybody go out into the grass area, and then we got kicked out of the grass and said, you can't be out here. There's too many of you. I just knew that at that point, Hal needed a support system, and he was asking for people, like, bring in certain people to come in, and he just had faithful people behind him that were not going to leave his side.
Do you remember how long after his injury he was actually told you have sustained a spinal cord injury?
Oh, it was right there in the ER.
Because sometimes I feel like we've had clients who they don't hear that for
Yeah.
days, weeks
Oh, no. We knew
after.
we knew in the ER that he was paralyzed. I mean, they told us right then and there.
And they
So
told him that he was in the room with that
oh
conversation.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I guess there's probably a side of me that just went numb at that point, so I don't really remember a lot of his. Hal never had a, as I would call a mental breakdown. Maybe that moment, I don't even know if it even occurred to him what that really meant.
Right.
But you know, I think I had to slap myself a couple times to just say, wait, this is real.
Right.
And maybe it's just your normal defense mechanism where your body kind of protects itself, and so you're kind of numb.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, honestly, trust me, I cried every single day, all day long. I would try to pull myself together, and I would just get enough strength to just walk in the room without a tear. I mean, you know, I did so much crying during the day that there was no tears left for when I was in the room, you know. So it was just having to stay really strong for him and not let him see me breaking down. And I didn't want, and actually I always tell people I lived through Hal. Like, when Hal was having a bad day, I was having a bad day. When Hal was having a good day, I was having a good day.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of how that works.
I couldn't imagine. That just sounds tough, but it sounds like the best thing for both of you was to have each other to go through that experience with. To fast forward a little bit, was going to Project Walk continuously, and then decided, let's bring a Project Walk to the Claremont Club.
Yeah, so that happened a little later. So Mike Alpert out at the Claremont Club, his daughter went to high school with Hal, and Mike came to us and said, hey, we have a racquetball court. We'll convert it into a little area where Hal can come and rehab. He had a trainer over there that had a background in PT, but he became more of a strength trainer, you know, in there. And he worked out with Hal every day, just a wonderful human being. Tragically, he died of a massive heart attack locally. We lost him in the first couple years of Hal's recovery there. But for us, it was more just that combination of care, going to Carlsbad at Project Walk, coming to the Claremont Club in our community center is what we called it at the time. And then also going to CASA. So
she's doing all three at the same time?
We did all three at the same time for years.
Really?
Yeah. You know, we were doing whatever CASA could give us. You know, we did hand therapy, pull therapy. So just the combination of cares, I really believe what helped his physical and also mental state by making sure that he had no downtime at all. Then school came about, which we can talk about later, but
we can get into it now.
Yeah. So after Hal's therapy, after Hal got released from the hospital, we talked about school. And that was really important to me. And actually I went back to Long Beach State to meet with the abilities department. And ironically, the man that was running that center over there was a quadriplegic himself. So I was like, this is perfect. Hal might be able to come back to school. If he's in a chair, this guy will figure it out for Hal and get him on track. But the reason why I went over there was just to get him pulled out in the right way, so that if we had to re-register, he wasn't going to be penalized for not showing up to school.
Yeah.
Because I needed to tell him, hey, we have to withdraw for medical purposes, and so we did that. And because he was ready to go to school the next week. He had his apartment, you know, and everything over there. So that never happened. But after maybe a little over a year, driving back and forth, I said, Hal, I think you need to go to school. And so that was kind of a touch subject. I don't know if Big Al talked to you about that.
Too much, no.
Where that was one of our big, we bumped heads about that a lot. Because I was real big on getting an education, and Hal would say he's fine. He doesn't need an education at the moment. He'll be just fine. And I would say, no, I want him to get his education. And he can still work out. We'll figure it out, even if we have to go to night school. So, and I don't remember what year it was, but I'm probably a little over a year later, we went to University of Laverne and we met over there, and we got him in. And I remember at the time going into his first day of school, and I had to go to school with him, right? So I think we took a couple day classes in the beginning, and then we added night classes. So we never overloaded Hal, but we just did enough just to keep him occupied. So we would go from therapy to school, and then come home, do his homework. But he took a really difficult class, a math class, which when I say was difficult for me because I was a math whiz. But I thought there's no way I'm going to be able to do math with him, because he would tell me how to translate his math problem on a paper. I couldn't do it. I didn't know the first thing about calculus or trigonometry. I don't even know how to write a formula, right? So I thought this is going to be very interesting. So we hired a young lady from the Pomona colleges. And or Claremont colleges, I can't remember which school she was at. Forgive me, Kayla. I should know that. But anyways, we hired her to come over, and she helped with Hal with his homework. So that kind of got him started. And, he ended up getting his master's at Laverne.
That's right.
So.
Do you remember what year he enrolled?
I should have done my homework, but I would say maybe in 2009, maybe.
Okay. About 2 years after his injury.
I think it was about a year after. And it was just, class here and there. And then and then Cherie, his caregiver, would take him. And then he had another caregiver, Stephen, and he would take him. So we always joked at the school and said that that Cherie and Stephen should get like a degree too, because I was actually went to Laverne, and I thought maybe I could finish my degree there.
Yeah.
I never did. I dropped out because I got pregnant. So with Hal, I was trying to go to college after marriage, just really hard to do. I don't know how people do it.
You're a business owner in the retail, restaurant, hospitality, or petroleum industry. You have ambitious plans for multi-site remodels, refreshing your brand, and integrating the latest technology, but you need a partner you can trust to bring those visions to life. Enter Apex Imaging Services. With a legacy dating back to 1949, we've been at the forefront of innovation and transformation for over 7 decades. From licensed general contracting in 48 states to cutting-edge tech solutions, we've got you covered. Our services include everything from interior and exterior refreshes, open and closed remodels, and technology integrations, to 3D virtual tours, data analytics, and cloud security for Fortune 500 companies. But it's not just about what we do, it's how we do it. We're dedicated to quality, value, and efficiency. We listen to your needs, tailor solutions to your goals, and deliver results on time and on budget. So whether you're planning your next remodel, seeking to enhance your brand, or embracing the digital age, Apex Imaging Services is your partner for success. Visit apeximagingservices.com to learn more. Apex Imaging Services, your vision, our expertise.
If you were to give advice to a parent maybe that's trying to get their son or daughter that's had a spinal cord injury or any type of disability, and they're trying to influence them to get back into school for education, what would you tell that parent?
Oh, I'm so pro education for a number of reasons. I mean, some people would disagree with me because there's a lot of very great people in this world that never went to college, right? But to me, it was important for the main reason really was to get Hal socially back into society. And
it's huge.
And that's really what I wanted for him. I wanted him to be able to experience college like all of his friends did, right? And I think that was the hardest thing for me. I went through a very angry stage where I didn't even want to hear any of my friends' kids' stories about how great they were doing in baseball or how great they were doing in school or where they were going to school. You know, it was a big deal, you know, their kids were going to college and I was like, well, my kid's going to the college of, you know, spinal cord injury, you know. I was really bitter for many years about that.
How did that affect Corey's college experience?
It affected Corey because Corey did not want to go away. At one point, Corey wanted to go to Arizona State. And I think after he got to the point where he was going to go away, he thought more about it, thought, I need to stick around and help you out when I can and be here with. He didn't want to leave his brother.
Yeah.
Haley was young at the time. That's a whole other story between my other two because they were so young.
Yeah.
I would say they got pushed into the back burner over there because here's what I would say. I only knew what I knew. And you go into this mode as a parent when your child's injured. Might be different if you're a husband or a wife or whatever, but all I knew is I'm a mom and I got to get my kid better. And I don't want him to be left behind. And I kept thinking he's going to be left behind. And so my focus went completely into him, which now I look back and regret because I feel like I've neglected my other kids and I didn't stop and think about what they were going through. So it took me years later to figure out that they were all affected in their own ways and that it would come out. So I started a quad mom support group.
Awesome.
You know, and we had this support group where we could talk about these things. And I think with all of us, we all came to the conclusion that we didn't do it right. And that if we were to do it all over again, we would hire more caregivers or we would break our time up a little bit more. But I wanted Corey to have the most normal high school, you know, junior year. I didn't want to take that away from him. So I never asked him to help. I mean, he was old enough to help, but I didn't want him to help because I didn't want to take those days. And as for Haley, you know, she was so young. She was an athlete. She played sports. And I thought there's no way I'm going to take her out of any sport or any dance that she was doing because I was trying to keep her as normal, you know, keep as much normalcy in her life as possible. And I really didn't show a lot of emotion, I think, in front of her because I was most worried about her age because I was worried that she would see me breaking down. And so I had to stay pretty stoic for a long time about my feelings because I thought it was a weakness if I showed that. You know, and then Bella was just so little, she never knew the difference, but didn't come out till years later that I found that she had a little anxiety over her brother, you know, in the condition he was in. And I didn't even let her come in the room to see her brother until a couple weeks later. I didn't want her to see him with a halo or on a ventilator or on anything because I just knew that it could potentially hurt her. Haley I brought in much sooner because she was more aware and she started asking questions. And then would ask, why isn't he walking? And, you know, but, you know, that would be my one regret. There is just not, again, I didn't know what I know. You know, I was just doing the best that I could do. And the whole family becomes affected. Your whole community is affected, you know.
I'm sure that's not anything that you would ever have thought that you had to explain to your kids beforehand, right? Like before it happened. Like you never had that moment when your kids are all young, like, okay, I may have to explain this to them in the future. But how do you feel like now people can educate their kids and tell them about spinal cord injuries or tell them more about disabilities? Like, what do you feel like are some other ways that people can now go about getting their kids into the realm of like disabilities and spinal cord? Because even honestly myself, before I got into this community of working here in college as well, I didn't learn much about spinal cord injury, nor did I know anybody really who had a spinal cord injury until I had a friend that had one. So like, what do you feel like are some good resources that people can look to?
So for us, or when the kids went to school, elementary school, when Corey and Hal went to elementary school, they happened to have a school over in the Claremont School District called Sumner. It was Danbury School. Danbury School was made for kids with disabilities. And then Sumner was just a regular school. So back in the day, you did not see kids in chairs integrate into a regular public school system. You just didn't see it. Mm-hmm. And I remember when that school came to our school, and this was right around how maybe his first year of his injury. Mm. And I said, how ironic is this, Hal? You used to go in the pool and work with these kids that had disabilities of all kinds, anywhere from CP to there was probably nobody in there with a spinal cord injury at the time, but they all had some sort of form of, whether it was muscular dystrophy, that was something we saw a lot earlier then. We would see kids with just bone disorders or muscular disorders, those types of things. So Hal was involved in the swim program at our school. So he would go in the pool with these kids that were in wheelchairs. He had to go through some training. All my kids went through this program over there, and they would go into the pool with them and teach them how to swim, or just get them acclimated to the water.
That's awesome.
I love that now, because now if you go to some public schools, you might see a kid or two in most public schools, because now schools have to have accessibility. Mm-hmm. A lot of, Claremont School District does a good job at the high school. They've had a great program there. I've had other friends who've had kids that lived outside of Claremont, and they had to figure it out and go outside of it. But I think you're seeing more now. You go to the bookstore now, or Target, and look, and you find books all day long with, people in chairs.
Definitely. Commercials on TV.
Yeah. I mean, you see it in commercials. Target and
exposure.
Kohl's, and
it's great.
You've seen people, and I think of Stephanie, and modeling over for the Skims.
Yeah.
So those kind of things that you see now, it's just awareness, and it makes people feel a lot more comfortable.
Definitely.
When you start integrating people that are living in chairs, no matter what their disability is or abilities, challenges. I hate the word disability, by the way. People with challenges is what I would say. It's just good to see that. You see it on TV now. I mean, I remember Avatar. Remember Avatar? Mm-hmm. I was fascinated with that movie when it first came out, because I thought, this guy did his homework. Go back and watch it. The guy's in a wheelchair. Yeah. And if you watch his every move, he's completely a believable character. You'd think, would they use an actor? Mm-hmm. And in fact, I did take Hal one time to it was an audition. My friend was looking for someone in a wheelchair to do some commercials, and I had him come over there to do an interview. And I remember I took him, and he goes, "Mom, I can't believe it. They made me sing." Like, I just sing. He had to sit there and sing, because he wanted to see if we could get him on a commercial, right? In a chair. So, but he never, maybe he wasn't a very good actor, or he was a terrible singer. So
we need to find that audition.
Yeah. But he did do that.
I need to see.
You'll have to ask him sometime about that one.
Definitely will. Okay. That's good advice, though.
So continuing on like a similar front of that, advocacy. Mm-hmm. You're a huge advocate for the neurological paralysis community. So much so that you have been involved recently in going to Washington, D.C. A couple of times. Can you talk on your experience of
for
that?
the FIT Act? Yes. Yeah. So that was something last year when we went for the very first time where we were newbies and we got invited. So we didn't say a whole lot because we were just kind of observing what was happening there, right? And once we got to Capitol Hill, we could go and listen to people advocating for this bill. So the bill was, when it was first introduced, there was just some things that needed to be tweaked about it. And so now they were trying, in fact, if you're following our Instagram, you'll see that it just recently it's getting pushed through a little bit more. So we're super excited. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to say too much because I don't even want to misinterpret what might happen.
We got you.
Yeah.
But I think once we got over there, I realized how important advocacy work is for anybody in whatever their cause may be.
Well, I think that goes into your point of people don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And so the only way to allow them the opportunity to know is through advocacy and spreading word of mouth, really. Because if something like that's not already in their algorithm or they're not accustomed to getting those pieces of information, they're not going to find it unless somebody goes out of their way to teach it to them.
And show them or share it or, and I guess that's maybe the beauty, if there's anything good about Instagram, it might be, educating yourself a little bit on what it means and what advocacy work can do for people. So our hope, honestly, is that we can get insurance to pay for people, and if we can get the insurance companies to pay for what we do at the Perfect Step, it would be a game changer. We'll always continue to fundraise as much as we can.
Definitely.
And, a big majority of our clients, we help them out when they need. Some people can afford it. Some people can't. Or they can only do it for a very short period of time. So I think the point really is, for me, is for people to know that going to the Perfect Step is really kind of a privilege a little bit. But it's not just a privilege, it's needed. It's a lifestyle.
Right.
People they're lucky enough to go to a gym.
Right.
You shouldn't, and nobody should be deprived of going to a gym and getting any kind of therapy, whether it be for mental health or physical. I think what frustrates me most about the insurance company is that they don't pay for enough sessions for someone to go into a rehab. They cut you off right away. There's just not enough. But I think there's just got to be more advocacy work to now we need to go to the insurance companies and say, hey, you have to cover this.
Right.
Because let's face it, if you're in this gym, we rule out, we help people in their mental health. That to me is the main huge number one thing in a catastrophic injury. I just had a niece, just had a stroke, and, it's just life-changing. When you've lived your life a certain way and all of a sudden your legs and your voice or whatever might be taken away from you. If we can't get people into therapy for, even just an hour a day, is what we need. These people come through, all our clients who come through this door will always tell me, you saved our lives. Not just from a physical standpoint, but from a mental standpoint, because they lose hope, and hope is hope, right? Which brings me to a doctor telling me that we used to give false hope. And that's very triggering to me. You can't, hope is hope.
Right.
And I think if we just can get our clients in here, even if it's twice a week and it be covered under insurance, or, take some of your tax dollars, and that's what this Fit Act will do, is take some of your tax dollars so that you can apply it. And really at the end of the day, whether it be for someone who's just an able-bodied person, we all need it.
Right.
Just for our health and weight, and you travel the country and you look at people, and we just live in a really unhealthy country. People are ill,
Right.
or they don't, we have mental health issues, people on the street, drug addictions, all the things that it's just very sad. And how do we help people if we can't serve people? And which brings me to the perfect step. You know, as you guys know, it's our passion project. I mean, without it, people wouldn't be going back to school. They wouldn't be driving again. They wouldn't be having babies, right? We have clients going back to school, or, you know, and any parent that comes here and asks me that question about school, or, you know, vacations, take a vacation, live your life.
Definitely.
You know, don't think your life is over, because it's not. There's just so much more to explore in a different way. And I don't know, I'm kind of going on a tangent.
No, you're
sorry.
right. I mean, no, you're absolutely correct. And especially like in the sense of like, I love when you mentioned about this is a never ending type of therapy.
Right.
Like there's
It's a lifestyle.
Yeah, there's acute care, there's subacute care, and then there's us. We're in the chronic stage of recovery, right? But we feel like the chronic stage is forever. That should be a continuous stage of recovery, not just a stage where you end up, you know, getting progressed, or, you know, and losing that progression and then getting bounced out of that recovery process. Like this is never ending. This should be for everybody, and that's why we feel like exercise is so important for every single person, whether you're in a chair or not in a chair. And that's why, I mean, like, we have a nonprofit like Be Perfect, where we have a fundraising team like Nicole. And we have the ability to hopefully provide opportunities for people to come to this place as long as they possibly can, as much as they possibly can, because of all the benefits that you stated.
Yeah. Well, and if anything, like you said, it's the resources.
Yeah.
You know, people come here and they didn't know they could travel, or they didn't know that they could have a child, or they didn't know that they could, you know, go back to school, or, you know, technology's changed over the years, from when Hal got injured. You know, now you got people driving again. Some of the new technologies in the cars that help them and assist them to drive. And it's a whole new journey. I look at it this way. Our lives are, I mean, most people might not agree with me on this, but I really believe that this was our purpose. It was Hal's purpose. As angry as I was for years, but then I realized Hal was given almost a gift so that he could help other people, you know, and just show a path that still has opportunities. I mean, he's got more opportunities than he probably would have ever had. You know, I think his life's fuller. If
you could go back and change it, would you?
No. I mean, there are days, you know, that I might, there's days that I'll just go, God, this really sucks. I had a moment the other day, you know, at the lake. You know, we take one of our clients out there and we throw him on a jet ski and having the time of his life. And then I kind of looked over at Hal and said, you want to try it? And he's like, no, I'm okay. You know, but I know more than anything, he'd probably want to get out there again. But, you know, you become a professional spectator when you're in a chair. He's, as I tell my husband, he would spin circles around the average person, because when you live your life in that state, you become more aware of your surrounding, and you're more sensitive to people's feelings. And I don't know, it's just there's a term for it and I can't remember what it is. Social awareness. No, there's another term, but I wouldn't change it. As painful as it was.
Do you ever think you'd have that perspective?
No.
What would you say was the moment where something happened in your guys' life where you thought, maybe it was supposed to be this way? Maybe I wouldn't change it. Maybe this was supposed
when
to be.
We came over to here and started the Perfect Step.
From the Claremont Club?
Yeah. And it really wasn't, not saying anything negative about anybody. And the only reason why I say that, because here I knew it was something that we could get our team together, whether it be our Apex team and our TPS team. And I think it was at that moment I just thought, we can do this. Like, I wasn't sure what was going to happen post-COVID, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I think I rode a high for such a long time prior to COVID, thinking this is going to be great. And I felt the two big angry parts of my life was, one, the day that Hal got injured, two, the day COVID happened and we had to shut down. Because the first thing that came to my mind was, what are we going to do? We can't let any of our clients down, you know? And I was so angry, you guys, you have no idea the things that went through my mind. I just said, I cannot believe anybody could do this to us. Like, I doubted my faith. Like, this just isn't right. Like, you're not only hurting one person, you're hurting multiple people. You're telling people they can't work out at a gym anymore when this is what gives them, you know, hope, and it actually is medicine. I got in a very dark place for a while there because I thought there's no way we'll be able to open back up. And then when I saw that we could, and I remember going to Pomona, to the city of Pomona, and asking them if we could redo our licensing. And I said, tell me how Casa Colina license and how they can stay open. We are a really rehabilitation center, exercise-based therapy. You know, we're doing exercise-based therapy. And I wanted to stick up for the gyms, but I had to, you know.
Distinct.
Yeah. I mean, we're distinctively different than a gym.
Definitely.
But still, at the end of the day, I just thought, what was happening? Why is this happening? Now I'm not afraid to say it. It was the dumbest thing they ever did, was to shut down any gym.
Definitely.
Because so many people.
One of the worst things they could have done.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was terrible because so many people had mental health issues after that.
Yeah.
Because we all relieve our anxieties and when we go to the gym.
Right.
You know, our endorphins get going, and it's our outlet.
Yeah.
You know, when you exercise and you feel better, you eat better, you have a better mindset.
It's a positive cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're motivated.
Welcome to The Perfect Step, a beacon of hope for those living with paralysis. We're not just another recovery program. We're pioneers in exercise-based recovery, transforming lives every day. Our mission is clear: to provide an improved quality of life through intense exercise-based recovery, education, research, and development. We treat conditions such as spinal cord injury, stroke, Parkinson's, and more. What sets us apart? Our clients often experience an improved level of function, sometimes even below their entry level. Imagine the possibilities when exercise is medicine. We're wheelchair-free, focusing on load-bearing activities to enhance function, bone density, muscle mass, sensation, and circulation. And it doesn't stop there. Our clients often reduce their medications and complications. But we're not just a program. We're a community of support. You'll meet peers who understand your journey, along with specialists dedicated to your recovery. Visit theperfectstep.com today and take the first step toward hope, health, and healing. The Perfect Step, where recovery begins.
So the Perfect Step was a company, but it was affiliated with the Claremont Club back in about 2017. Is that true?
Yeah. So we were previously the Project Walk because we bought the franchise.
Right.
And then that closed down.
Yep.
And so we wanted to rebrand ourselves to the Perfect Step.
Yeah.
And that was the best day of my life. When I knew that we were able to do that. I mean, I thought,
it's amazing.
This is cool that we'll be able to do it. But to look back and see, how was the first client? And we had a couple clients at the time, and it just kept growing and growing and growing and growing. And the cool thing is we really never advertised. It was just word of mouth. And to this day, other than Instagram, if it's not on your algorithm, you're not going to see it, right? But we don't really need to. I mean, we do need to, but I mean, the last thing I want is to ask for more people to come here.
Exactly.
The worst thing I could ever wish for.
Yes.
We always say if there was a cure one day and it put us out of a job, then we wouldn't be mad at all. Yeah.
I know.
Right.
But the one thing we have to continue, because if there ever is a cure, those people will not be ready.
They'll need us most. Yeah.
And you have to, I learned this long ago. I used to go to UCI and they used to have these meet the scientists
I just went
meetings.
to one, like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, they're great. We're
Yeah.
at UCI.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you listen to some doctors over there talk
Mhm.
about,
It was
you know,
Sam Maddox.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. If we didn't have centers like the Perfect Step, when the cure comes, nobody's going to be ready. They won't be ready because you have to, one, be mentally ready for that. It's like an organ donor, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you become an organ donor, you got to get your body ready.
Right.
I mean, they prep you. I mean, you have to have, clean health, good mental health, because it's it takes a toll on your body,
Definitely.
right? So, I mean, whatever the scientists are doing to make this happen, we have to make sure our clients have good bone density, and if they're not ready to stand, they'll never be ready to be a recipient of any of it.
Right.
More of the reason why we need to get the insurances involved, because it'll help them, plus it reduces their secondary complications. So you're not going to see people going back into the hospital. And how many people have come in on medication,
Right.
which
Wow.
the pharmaceutical companies love us, right? People like with injuries because they
Right.
feed off of people with injuries because they can give them more medication.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
I'm so I'm just more holistic on all of it. I just think you just feel better,
Right.
you know?
Amen.
The numbers don't lie. I mean, we have a return client questionnaire on our evaluation,
Mhm.
and it'll ask a question of how many hospital visits have you had since your last evaluation,
Oh, really?
right? And
Mhm.
and another question is how many times have you paid a visit to the doctor since your last evaluation?
Right.
And
And
when you
that's
see
reduced.
that number decrease
Yeah.
and reduce and go down, it's
Yeah.
so heart filling, and you just like see how many times our clients don't have to go to the hospital or
Oh, yeah.
reduce secondary complications, have less bladder infections,
Right.
have less pressure sores, have better bone density. Like there's so
Right.
many aspects that come along with that. And
Oh,
like you
yeah.
said, mental health is number one. It's probably,
yeah.
if not the most important thing as far as our clients seeing
Right.
positive benefits in community, social gatherings, and
Oh, yeah.
mental health. It's huge.
Yeah. And it's great because I think having our little meet and greets here, whatever we have, people realize, gosh, you can still do all these things and have relationships, and it's just, I don't know.
It's a good sense of community.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's almost like when one person does something in the community, it opens that perspective for a lot of other people. It's almost like the 4 mile or the 4 minute mile. Once
Mhm.
somebody understands that it becomes possible, everybody else is like, oh, you mean I can do that too? And
Right.
then you get a collective of individuals who buy into that idea that they can do it too, and then they are able to.
Oh, yeah.
For you, kind of last question I have is, the progression of the Perfect Step has been amazing. If you were to have to predict where will we be in 5 years, what would you say?
Oh. I know where I'd like to see us.
Well,
I
you
would
can do
like
both.
to see a similar program in every gym across the country with actual trained trainers like you both, and Elmer here too. Just, all of you. If we could have every gym across the country to have it, just even a cutout section, right?
Right.
And I know that's something Hal's trying to propose, and get out there right now. We just think it's super needed. There's just a high, a lot of people just don't feel comfortable, whether they're, had a stroke or they've had a traumatic brain injury or they've had, any kind of a illness that has affected their anything to do with their speech or their gait or whatever it might be. It's hard to go to a gym. I mean, I walk into a gyms and all you just see is a bunch of buff young people for the most part.
Bunch of Logans.
There are a lot of
Almost.
clubs. Maybe there are some clubs that I don't go to, that have people my age. But, it's intimidating to go into any gym as it is.
Definitely.
But I think it's important to have a section integrated in every health club so that we could have some sort of community center that's built around,
Have actual accessibility.
and accessibility.
I love
Right.
that answer.
Love
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What has been your greatest resource to learn about the SCI community? Has it been a book, podcast, experience of being a mother of an SCI survivor? Or what's been your biggest
Well,
resource?
really all of those.
Yeah.
You don't know everything until you live it.
Mm.
When you live it every day, you realize there's a lot to it, I love listening to podcasts. I mean, like to go on and listen to what, your people you interview, the things that and their experience, and everybody has a different experience. Everybody has a different path.
Right.
Everybody might have a different story, on how they got there or how they thought, their lives were over. But what is the worst thing that can come out of being in a place like this? You just get better.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who wouldn't want that, right?
Right.
But resources, I mean, just even people that come here, I mean, I learn more from people. I love to walk through here and sit out there and just chat with our clients and, on a one-on-one basis on their experiences, even if they've had prior stories or whatever it might be. But I learn from other people and how they handled. I'm still learning. I mean, I'm learning all about strokes because of my niece. I would have never. I thought I knew everything, when it came to a lot of the stuff in here. But there's still so much about the brain that we don't know. There's so much about the spinal cord, that we don't know. And I don't know. I wish there were more interviews with people who have gone through. I love seeing movies. We've learned through movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's been some great movies that have been out that I've watched that I've learned from.
Fine.
Not always on the up and up side, but does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I hope that people out there that are telling their story know how much of a positive impact they can have on somebody else when they're telling their story.
Right.
And live with that. Yeah.
And I'm not saying that everybody's going to have a perfect success or we're going to all heal differently.
all right.
But I'm just a huge advocate for anybody who has a loved one who doesn't have them in a program like this. They don't know what they're missing. They really don't. That's the missing piece to the whole thing. You have to keep going. Hal told me something that was pretty profound yesterday. I wish I could quote it exactly, but he says, if you can't, you need to move forward. You got to move on to move forward. Like, yeah, I mean, you got to move on, like away from, and I know I'm quoting it wrong, but he just said it best. I mean, it made me really think. I said, you're absolutely right. You just can't sit and dwell on the past, or what could have been, or what should have been, or how it could be, or any of that. That just, drags you down.
Right.
And everybody has a purpose, whether, they're walking or they're not. I mean, the amount of lives that you can change just by sharing your story, I wish every client in our program would sit here and share their story from every aspect.
That is a goal.
Get everybody. Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you, Lorie, so much for coming on and sharing your wealth of knowledge and the vulnerability. I think a lot of parents in the community can get something out of that, as well as the clients.
Right.
But thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lorie. Appreciate you a lot.
Of course, thank you for having me. I could go on forever. You know that. Yeah, but thanks.
No, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of Pathways to Healing, the Perfect Step Podcast.
Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, share, and leave a review by clicking the link in the description below.
If you have any feedback or topics you'd like for us to cover in upcoming episodes, you can go to our website under the tab Pathways to Healing and fill out the form.
We'll be back in a couple of weeks with another engaging conversation about the process community. Until then, stay resilient, keep inspiring, and roll on.